1092 has got every One Piece fan asking, where is Kuma going? And why did he hit the red line? It's actually pretty easy to understand when it's put into context. However, the bigger question could be, how will all of this tie up? Will Kuma actually die? And if so, how will Kuma's will be continued? Kuma's fruit has grown more and more important as time goes on, with us first thinking his pawpaw fruit could displace objects and people, just to later find out it can do much, much more. Such an ability may have been integral to the story of Joy Boy, the Poneglyphs and the Void Sentry, and it feels like we'll soon get an info dump on the history of Kuma's fruit. If you don't know a One Piece YouTuber called Tosmorn already, check him out, links below. He spoke to me about how Kuma's fruit may have been what actually imbued the Poneglyphs to begin with, and this is how they get the voices inside. An interesting idea for sure, and plenty more options there to explore, but moving on. From 1068 to 1092, Kuma uses his power to flee Kamabaka Kingdom, where he travels through the air before crashing into the Red Line. There were no paw prints when Kuma landed, which is usually a sign of Kuma using his fruit. This suggests to us Kuma did not intend on being at the Red Port, so why would Kuma throw himself into the wall? Did he really forget about the Red Line's existence and just crash into it? This video will explain how it's actually quite simple, but the reasons could unravel something far deeper. So like and sub, and let's get straight into this one. When we first saw Kuma crash into the Red Line, it immediately stood out as strange to many fans. On reread, however, I noticed when Lucci commanded S-Bear to land on Egghead Island by flying using his fruit, it appears Kuma received the same command. This is potentially what caused him to suddenly get up and run off, despite Dragon's orders to stay put. Once triggered, Kuma uses his pawpaw fruit to fly to Egghead Island, but seeing as Kamabaka Kingdom is in Paradise, which is on the other side of the Red Line to Egghead, Kuma was instead intercepted by the Red Line. As I mentioned, when Kuma crashes into the Red Line, it doesn't leave a paw mark, and neither is there one when he hits the ground. This shows it was not the intended landing place, as usually when Kuma does use his pawpaw fruit for this kind of travel, it leaves a large signature paw print in the landing spot, whether or not that's in the ground or whatever. From the Red Port, Kuma makes his way up the Red Line from where he landed, again suggesting he did not intend on being at the Red Port to begin with, and so the world government tries to stop him. Atop the Red Line, Kuma meets a Kainu, where he narrowly avoids a lethal one-shot to the face. Kuma slips past a Kainu and uses his fruit to continue his journey, but not before a Kainu can land another attack on Kuma's leg. With Kuma severely injured, he disappears, and Akainu wonders where Kuma could have gone, highlighting the fact that the world government is currently unaware of the connection between the Seraphim and their original hosts. When we look at the sequencing, the Revolutionaries in 1067 say, "Is he still under control of the government?" Which is a hint. In the following chapter, we see Oda has both S-Bear and Kuma use their paw abilities to travel at the exact same time. We see Lucci saying, "We will go to Egghead using S-Bear's power," and the next few panels are Kuma pawing himself from Kamabaka. Also, in the same chapter, Vegapunk mentions the robot climbing the Red Line, which Kuma does not long after. Next time we see Cypherpole, they're on Egghead. This sequence reads quite explicitly when you look at it from this perspective, with it seemingly pretty obvious Lucci's command to breach Egghead somehow triggered Kuma. So why is Kuma currently mindless to begin with? And how is it possible Kuma is connected to S-Bear on this deeper level? Kuma having no will is probably due to his mind being manipulated by Vegapunk and the world government, likely within the past decade. We see this reiterated in Akainu's 1092 flashback, where he tells Bonnie her father willingly chose to go undercover, which will be what leads to Kuma literally losing his mind, or will. Another clue Kuma was physically experimented on is that we see he has bear ears. This is because on closer inspection, it is revealed Kuma did not in fact have these bear ears as a child or in Bonnie's flashbacks when he is an adult. So at some point later in Kuma's life, he developed a new physique, potentially during the time he was being experimented on. The bear ears are most likely indicative of the fruit he has, so it's probably involved. Included in this new physique is Kuma's eyes, which now appear the same blank white as S-Bear's. So we can see this isn't exactly Kuma as himself, but instead a cyborg shell, perhaps with a fragment of Kuma left inside. We don't know why Kuma went through these experiments, but it's implied he chose to willingly. The name Bartholomew may be a hint to this, as it likely comes from one of Jesus' apostles who goes by the same name, and who became popularized through the miracles he performed. However, Bartholomew is best known through dying for a cause greater than himself. Kuma holding a Bible throughout the story also suggests this, which is interesting while being deeply connected to a Seraphim, considering the word Seraphim originates from the Bible and is a type of angel. This is again echoed in the Lunarian traits and appearance surrounding the Seraphim too. But anyway, it's possible Kuma has absolutely no will at this point and is a zombie, as Akainu suggested. In fact, Akainu specifically said Kuma doesn't have a mind of his own, which is a hint his mind is possessed by someone or something else. If Kuma has no will, he may not have the autonomy to get around objects in his path, whereas in the past he may have had this capability. In other words, Kuma probably could have dodged the red line if he was in his right mind, but because he's like a zombie, boom, he just followed the order and went straight into it. It's likely Kuma can only send other objects or people in straight lines though, as suggested by the time skip where the Straw Hats were sent to islands that all appear on one side of the red line, including Paradise, the East Blue, South Blue, and finally the moving island of Woodvaria in the sky. If this is true, then it may suggest that the poneglyphs were partially blocked by the red line, which could be why we find 2 at Fishman Island. That said, it's just speculation for now, and I'll discuss it more in a future video about Frankie and Kuma's connections and how it might sound wild, but it's looking like Frankie might actually get Kuma's fruit. But how is Kuma having no will relevant to his connection with Esper? If Esper and Kuma are connected, then having no will may mean the original Kuma is susceptible to the same control as Esper, for example through the authority chip, which I'll touch on in a second. Evidence to suggest Kuma and Esper share a deeper connection than initially thought can be seen via Frankie, who noticed something important about the Seraphim. Frankie, rather than Vegapunk, identified S-Snake's affection for Luffy resembling the original host, Boa. It's worth noting Frankie has moments like this several times in Egghead, suggesting his intellectual instinct is more advanced than Vegapunk's in some ways. Vegapunk follows up by stating it must be a feature of lineage factor. This line also gives us a clue that the connection between Kuma and Esper is also to do with lineage factor. We've already seen S-Snake help the Straw Hats by unpetrifying them, so maybe we'll see Esper and even some of the other Seraphim turncoat. So, will the Pacifistas also be affected by the connection between Kuma and Esper, as they also share Kuma's lineage factor partly? The short answer is no, as they are clones of Kuma's body, unlike the Seraphim, which are duplicates in both body and mind, and even fruit in Esper's case. One possibility is Bonnie will give Esper Kuma's memories after his death. Seeing as they seem bound currently, this would essentially act as reviving Kuma once the memories are restored. The fact Kuma's memories were even left in that bubble in Egghead is sus to begin with, so it's possible Kuma planned his own revival. Something interesting about this idea is that Kuma is said to be a special race, and Esper of course has Lunarian lineage, so maybe Kuma is tied to the Lunarians. Kuma does sound like Luna after all, but for now let's get back to the point before I start going off on one. So this leaves us with the question, if Kuma is connected to Esper to the point where he even carries out some of the orders that Esper receives, then how is this actually happening? It's not like Kuma could hear Lucci give the order to Esper. Or could he? What if, when Lucci gave the order to Esper, Kuma did actually hear it somehow? A mindless Kuma hears the order to Esper to breach Egghead Island and automatically carries it out. This idea was something Dax Sake pointed out to me, and he suggested that Kuma had literally just been at Marijois, which is where Lucci just was. So there is another possibility which could be more likely. Dax's idea was that, as I said, Lucci was in Marijois with Kuma and everyone else before this happened, and probably has a level of control over Kuma, like he does over Esper, since he protects the Celestial Dragons. It may be that Kuma has an earpiece or some internal transmitter that lets him hear what Lucci's saying. It makes sense that a slave's handler would have a way to control the slave. As Dak put it, "Hey Kuma, go get me a soda." A really spicy addition to this is that it was actually stated Seraphim cannot take orders via Denden Mushi, but we know Kuma is not a Seraphim, meaning this could be a brilliant reversal of the Denden Mushi nuance here. Another solution involves the authority chip. We haven't seen a transmission connecting any of the other Seraphim to their hosts so far, but maybe somehow the authority chip's command to Esper reached Kuma. We've had some pretty detailed descriptions of how the hierarchy of authority works while using the chip. We've also seen it tested, for example when Kaku gave orders to Esper using the chip, but Sentomaru could override them. Also, Shaka couldn't stop Esper from attacking Lucci and Kaku, which might imply Vegapunk no longer has the same control as he did before. But before I conclude, let me just throw some extra info your way and see if anything sticks, and then I'll tie it all up with what I thought happened with the Authority chip. I can't put my finger on it yet, but there is one other thing that stands out to me. For some reason I feel like the green blood ties into all of this, and potentially even Kuma's special race, or people, depending on the translation you go by. Maybe Esper and Kuma are somehow telepathically connected through their genetics, or Lunarians are somehow special in a way. One detail that's barely discussed by the community is the fashion piece on the Seraphim. S-Snake has earrings, and Esper has the clothes pattern we see with Kuma and Law and some others. Strangest of all is probably that S-Croc has the scar across his face that Crocodile has for some reason. None of these characters should have this, it would seem. So is it a stylistic choice perhaps to make the Seraphim easier to distinguish, or is this another nod to a strange connection in their lineage factor? There is one notable exception I thought I'd mention for the Mihawk fans though, which is that S-Hawk does not wield an exact copy of Yoru. This is super significant in my opinion. As I've stated in older videos, Yoru was probably Joy Boy's blade, hence why you get the title World's Strongest Swordsman. But you can catch more of that in some of my older stuff. Let me know your thoughts on these additional bits of information in the comments section below, and I'll get back to you on it ASAP. Now, in conclusion, what is most likely going on with the connection between Kuma and Esper? And does this mean we should expect some of the other Seraphim to go through a similar situation? Firstly, there most likely is a connection between the two. The connection is very likely why Oda has kept Esper separate from the other Seraphim so far, as it would otherwise complicate the whole situation involving authority. I think Lucci commanded Kuma from a long distance to land on Egghead using his paw fruit inadvertently. The Authority chip allowed Lucci to command Esper, and Esper's connection to Kuma through their shared lineage factor meant that Kuma also received the command. Particularly if Kuma at some point had command over the Pacifista or the other Seraphim. Remember, Esper is a clone of Kuma. This is alongside the fact that Kuma has no will of his own and so was submissive to the order, meaning the other Seraphim would likely not affect their hosts in the same way, as they all have fairly strong wills. Following the order Lucci gave, Kuma uses his fruit to go to Egghead, causing him to hit the red line blocking his path. He then immediately climbs over the red line rather than using his fruit to go up it, like a robot meeting an obstacle. On his first opportunity, Kuma uses his fruit again after reaching the top and disappears. He'll probably arrive at Egghead, get closure with Bonnie, and then get the tissues ready for that one, because we all know he's probably going to die. It should be coming soon anyway, so stay tuned and I'll drop an update with Frankie getting Kuma's fruit pretty soon. If you made it this far, you just want any hat you want from the whole One Piece world. Let me know which one you're going for in the comments, like and sub for more, and I'll definitely catch you on the next one. Muchos lovos, and peace.